What is going on, everyone? I'm Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, and today I'm here to give you my review for Thief. Now, you are Garrett, the Master Thief. The city you once knew has changed. Your thieving skills are all you can trust as you walk the fine line between politics and the people entangled in layers of conflict. With time running out, you unreveal a dark personal secret in the past that ultimately threatens to tear your world apart. But overall, in the beginning, the story does sound interesting, but as the game plays on, it just, the story doesn't really hold up strongly with this game at all, to the point where you basically kind of just forget the story and just basically focus as if you're just a master thief going around kind of looting and trying to get as much gold as possible within the game. But overall, the story was okay, but it tends to drag out, and in the end, you just honestly lose interest right off the bat. As for the graphics, visually the game looks really impressive, and what I like about it is the amount of detail that they put into the game, not only along the city in terms of the streets and different apartments that you're going to be visiting, but the different looks and styles of the characters and even the lighting effects, because within the game you can choose whether you want to be out in the open or choose to hide in the shadows, and you could easily tell with just the lighting and the reflections of the flames and torches that you see within the game. Just visually, the game overall is very stunning and one that was compelling to the eye. As for the gameplay was easy to understand. What's cool about the game is that you have about 3 different options in which you could play. Option number 1 is like becoming one with the shadows by completing the game without taking out any NPCs and getting involved or caught. Option number 2 is the Predator, in which in this case you take out any NPC within your way. And option number 3 is doing a mixture of both. Now, in the game, you are a master thief, meaning that what you're going to be doing within the game is stealing all kinds of unique items. You're going to be breaking into safes, cutting out pictures, and all kinds of unique things. And every time you steal items, you're granted with currency in which you could use towards upgrades. And these different upgrades could be such as more additional health, adding more to his focus ability, which he gets towards later on within the game, and all kinds of unique items. And of course, you could also buy additional tools to get more loot within the game, such as a wrench to get access to specific areas, a wire cutter tool to disable traps, and all kinds of unique items to aid him in his thievish ways. In the game, you only have access to 2 different weapons, the first of which is a blunt tool in which Garrett will use to knock out his opponents, and the second item is a bow, which is multi-useful depending on how you're playing the game. For example, if you're taking the stealthier approach, you could use the bow to basically eliminate your opponents in a few different ways. You could use fire arrows, you could use lethal arrows, all kinds of unique ways, even explosive arrows, in which you unlock later on within the game. And if you're taking the stealthier approach, you could use the water arrows to douse flames. You could also use the rope arrows to get access to higher areas, which will usually lead to some type of collectible within the game. But there's all kinds of unique uses for the bow, and you even have some defensive abilities. For example, you have a smoke pellet arrow, in which after you fire to your enemies will create a cloud of smoke, allowing you to get out of the combat area. And you also have another one which is kind of like a flash bomb, which will flash in front of your enemies and which will make them blind. But be careful, because if you look into that one, you're also going to become blind as well for a few seconds. So be careful depending on how you want to choose. Now, you're able to upgrade these items because the blunt tool, for example, if you happen to be getting in the heat of combat, is not going to aid you very well because it is extremely weak. Because after all, it is used to knock down his opponents, not kill them. And how to do that is that every time you steal items within the game, you actually meet this black market dealer guy. He's going to not only sell you different equipment for your bow, such as the different arrowheads, but you're also able to upgrade your different abilities in which you're able to use. As for the overall sound design, overall it wasn't too bad, but there was a couple issues. But first, let me go over the positive. I do think that all the characters involved within the game in terms of voice acting did an extremely good job. I also like the in-game soundtrack and some of the tone that the levels had. For example, there was a level in which you were in this creepy asylum, and the music tone in which they had playing in the background just really gave it this creepy vibe, and I was like, wow, I feel more creeped out in this asylum than I was in Outlast. So overall, the sound department in terms of music wise and the voice actors, I think did an extremely good job, but there was a couple issues in terms of sound effects and with the NPCs. The first of which is where there's a few instances where stuff tend to be crashing down to the ground, and then you hear a delay sound effect until 3 seconds later. For example, imagine if a boulder just crashed down through your roof, and then 3 seconds later you hear the sound effect of the boulder crashing through your roof. Obviously it doesn't add up. You're supposed to hear it the moment it happens. So that was just one of the issues that happened quite a few times within the game. And the other one is where the NPCs tend to repeat themselves every 3 seconds, or every time they meet up during their patrol units. They tend to have the same exact conversation in about 3 to 4 seconds apart from after having it. It would have been nice to see the NPCs having a different conversation. Like, for example, maybe the first time they meet, they talk about, oh, how's their day going? Then the second time they meet around is talking about some of the issues that are going around the city. And then the third time, a different one. You know, it'll be nice to have a variety of different conversations between the guards. But that was just one of the issues there, and just the sound department. But overall, like I said, the voice actors and the tone of the music was overall really well done, just minus the 2 issues. As for the lifespan, what kind of lifespan do I see in this game? And to me, this game doesn't have too bad of a lifespan, because first off, like I said, you have about 3 different choices in which you could play the game. You could do the game 100% stealth, you can do it by basically taking out every NPC within your path, or you could do it a mixture of both. So it's nice to go back and replay the game. Like, for example, if I were to replay the game, most likely I'll try to do the 100% stealth approach and see if I can complete the game without being caught once or harming any NPCs. So that'll be one of the main incentives in which I would go back. The other main incentives here is that obviously you're a master thief, and there's a lot of different stuff to steal, and there's a lot of side missions in which you could participate in, which will reward you with a lot more loot, and there's a ton of different upgrades that you can unlock. So that's pretty much reason enough to keep going back, is that there's a ton of unlocks, there's a ton of stuff to steal, and there's about 3 different ways in which you could choose to play. And of course, does it affect the outcome of the story of any kind of way? No, not so ever. But it is nice to see what you're able to accomplish. You know, for those of you who are fans of the original franchise and want to do it stealth, you do have that. Or for the people who tend to be more into the action adventure style, you do have that option. So it's a nice incentive to go back and to replay the game. As for the innovative, was there anything new here, or was this stuff that we already seen before? It's kind of a mixture of both. What I like is that they took the original franchise, which was more focused on stealth, and they gave the audience a much more wider experience in terms of how they want to play the game. Not only that, I even got the chance to play the game on the PlayStation 4, and there was a little bit of innovative there with the DualShock 4 controller. For example, if you wanted to select items, you use the touchpad on the controller. And my personal favorite is the light bar in front of the controller. If you have to be open in the light, you'll notice a big light beam coming out of your controller, especially when you're playing at night, and while you're hidden within the shadows, you're just going to get that low blue beam indicating that you're hidden. But I do like the innovative there with the controller. But overall, the game wasn't too bad, just the story didn't seem that interesting or hold up, especially with the weird ending that we got for the game. But overall, the mechanics tend to work. There was some other issues within the game besides some of the sound department, was frame rate. I did notice a lot of frame rate drop, not only during cutscenes, but action throughout the entire game, which tend to get annoying. And of course, the long loading screens. Now, the loading screens were not like a minute or 2 long. It's just a constant loading screen, because it's not an open world game. Every time you want to go to a new section within the city, you have to go through a loading screen, and that can get really annoying after a while. But overall, I'm going to give the game a 7 out of 10. If you guys want to see my full complete walkthrough, you guys could click the link down below. Anyways, I'm Sir James from Gamerfuzion, and remember, Gamerfuzion empowers your gaming.